This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning in to the program. It's Thursday, July the 3rd. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly, David Williams. He's producing the program. You'll be speaking with David when you pick up the phone to give us a call to get in the queue and on the air. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 86-26. And how about them Blue Jays? 86 games into the regular season, tied at the top of the American League East standings with the New York Yankees for the first three games of a four-game set against the Yankees. Look, lots of baseball yet to be played. Who knows where the Jays may end up? But 10 games over 500. It's not that long ago they'd be battling around the 500 mark to be a game above, lose a couple of games, win a couple. Here we are, 7-3 in the last 10. Top of the AL East. Amazing stuff, really, anyway. And so yesterday the vote went through between the IIHF and the NHL Players Association. NHL players going back to the Olympics next year for the first time in 12 years. So an actual best on best tournament, of course, what hockey fans absolutely want. A couple of quick ones here. So I want to say congratulations this morning to Lucan Mead from St. John's. He's the 2025 Provincial Junior Golf Champion. Pretty great accomplishment. Played out at the Bloomendown Golf Course out in Corner Brook. Golf is hard. I can tell you that much from experience. And I haven't seen Lucan play, but I've been told that he's really quite the player. So congratulations to Lucan Mead. His dad, Brent Mead, down at St. John's Sports and Entertainment. All right, what's the... Oh, Wimbledon notes. So here we are, week one of a fortnight at the All England Club at the Wimbledon tennis tournament. On this date, 1976, I'll throw some big names out here. 1976 at the Wimbledon men's tennis, Sweden's Bjorn Borg beats Ilie Nastase of Romania 6-4, 6-2, 9-7 for the first of his 5 straight Wimbledon titles. And Nastase, I mean, everyone in the tennis world knows who Bjorn Borg is, but Nastase's kind of an overlooked player. He was a terrific tennis player. So when the ATP Tour first put out the rankings, he was the inaugural world number one. He stayed there for some 40 weeks. He's one of 10 players to have won over 100 total ATP level titles, 64 in singles, 45 in doubles. He's got 7 majors, 2 in singles, 3 doubles, 2 in mixed doubles. So here's an interesting one about Nastase. He was the first professional athlete to sign an endorsement deal with Nike. Right? I mean, anyway, Ilie Nastase. Another quick Wimbledon. 1982, women's tennis. Martina Navratilova beat Chrissy Everett-Lloyd 6-1, 3-6, 6-2 for the first of her 6 straight Wimbledon titles. So there's 4 legends on this date in history at Wimbledon. All right, I've been hearing from people sporadically about the controversy surrounding the most recent provincial election. And we know that there was nothing but problems with the mail-in ballots. Absolutely everybody understands that. But we still don't know what the so-called settlement is. So they settled out of court. John Abbott, as a result, resigned as the MHA, staying with his ministerial portfolio until the next election is called. But that's a big word to throw around without any details, because it wasn't just Alison Coffin and John Abbott included in this. It was Jim Lester, who lost his seat to Lucy Stoyles, or Sheila Fitzgerald, who lost her seat to Crystal Lynn Howell. So is anybody, most importantly, is the Premier ever going to tell us what the settlement is? I mean, I don't know what impact it will have on revisiting the last election. I imagine nothing, really. But it'd be nice to know what said settlement includes. And what about those other 4 names? We haven't heard a peep from either of them. So anyway, if you want to talk about it, we can do it. And talk about resignation. So I understand that Jeff Loader has resigned his position at the helm of the Association for Seafood Producers. Why? Don't know. But it is a pretty big shake-up in the industry. We have heard from the FFAW their concerns on a variety of fronts, including the shipping out of unprocessed crab. It's eerily quiet on that front, whether it be at the political level and or from the Association of Seafood Producers themselves. We don't know who's directly involved, what the implications may be, but it makes big splash and big headlines when Dwan Street, the president of the FFAW, comes on to talk about it. but nothing. Haven't heard any rebuttal from the ASP, maybe some quiet rumblings on social media, and that's maybe from who knows who, just trying to stir the pot, possibly on the Newfoundland Fishermen's Forum. But anyway, apparently Mr. Loader out at the ASP, and it would be nice to know what the province is doing or thinking or investigating regarding unprocessed crab leaving the province. Because, of course, the province has the jurisdiction and the authority regarding licenses for processors, but haven't heard a peep. Anyway, let's keep going. So we've heard announcements from Newfoundland Labrador Hydro about a couple of $1 billion in construction projects proposed by Hydro to the PUB. There's a new consultant report out there from a group called Bates White. They're saying that Newfoundland Labrador Hydro has proven its need to increase power generation on the island, but they're worried that the utility may be building too much too fast. So they're talking about the price tag, the timelines, and the demand forecast. So what's been proposed is a new 150 megawatt diesel burning combustion turbine at Holyrood, a new 154 megawatt turbine at Bay d'Espoir, of course, adding the 8th unit to that particular plant out in southern Newfoundland. So there's a bunch of quotes that run around here. Hydro says they absolutely need to meet the demand for power. They talk about the continuing transition to electric cars and heating. People seem to think that the purchase of electric vehicles has gone down in the recent past, but the issue is it's gone up. They say the use of the Hydro installed charging stations on the highway is up 40%. So people are doing some decarbonisation or electrification, but we have to make sure we know exactly what we're doing on the timeline that's been proposed. So let's see here. This is a quote coming from the document. The slow decarbonisation forecast, while a reasonable scenario for consideration in the build application, is not the lowest plausible load scenario over the planning horizon. Lower population growth, lower EV adoption rates, and lower industrial load growth are possible and could coincide, says the document itself. And remember, we're also talking about rate mitigation monies that are coming from Hydro, a couple of $1 billion over 6 years, and then no real plan into the future what that might look like. The Auditor General is still looking for some details associated with that rate mitigation. We know that Hydro posted a loss last quarter, so there we go. What is the actual need? How's it going to be achieved? And remember, there's a lot of this associated with Holyrood, what the future looks like. One of the arguments made for Muskrat, of course, was to shut down the 490 megawatt Holyrood thermal generating station. They talk about possibly needing it into the future for backup if there's a problem with the Labrador Island link. So that 1,100 kilometre transmission line, it has been tested at very high capacity, maybe not the thresholds that some people are hoping to see, so that we have some cold comfort that we won't be left in a lurch. Remember, Liberty Consulting, who was doing some great work with the PUB for quite a long time, they're talking about the risks associated with a major outage regarding whether it be lines that are down on the long-range mountains or maybe some software hiccup. They were talking about things like blackouts, rolling brownouts, 45 days, 60 days. So obviously the backup generation is desperately needed on the island, but some concerns and questions being asked by Bates White about the $2 billion in proposed construction projects. And of course, when we talk Hydro, one of the biggest conversations in this province should be about the Upper Churchill Memorandum of Understanding. It got some traction when it was first announced in the glossy or glitzy press conference at the Rooms. Some blogs were written about it, some calls have come to this program, but it's been pretty quiet overall when you talk about the massive impact that it will have. So from any angle, we can take that on as well if you're so inclined. All right, so summertime, and here we go. The kids are out of school, and the emails are piling up insofar as the creation of childcare spaces or early childhood education spaces is not keeping pace with demand. We know it to be true. If you want to tell your story live on the air, please do indeed do exactly that. Putting faces or voices to the stories is probably a bit more beneficial than me sitting in a studio on Kenmount Road, because I don't need childcare. I understand how important it is for affordability and for accessibility. We know what it means for economic impact when people are able to get back to work, as opposed to one, having to stay home because you can't find a childcare space. And we understand that not everybody's nan or pop wants to or can possibly bear that load of childcare for a variety of reasons. You want to take it on? We can do it. And speaking of the kids out of school, no surprise, and it happens every single summer, And it's a real sad state of affairs when you think that 40% of children in this province live in a food insecure household. You back out the opportunity for a Kids Eat Smart breakfast. You back out a school lunch, and we see a lot of children that really go without in the summertime, or their families go without a variety of things just in an effort to try to keep their kids fed. Can you believe it? 2025, modern day Canada, and that's the scenario? You don't have the safe haven of school to rely on for a bite to eat for so many children. What exact number are in that predicament? I don't know. But any percentage is a conversation worth having, if you ask me. On top of that, the summer is not a time for the Department of Education to take their foot off the pedal. Preparing for a return to school, for instance, an expansion for the school lunch program. And we know that there's been some $20 million set aside to hire 400 additional positions. That'll grow to $44 million next year. And then finally on Friday last week, it was announced, because it was not itemized in the initial announcement from the government, but now apparently speech language pathologists will be part of it. An additional 45 speech language pathologists working in the K-12 system. That number hasn't changed for 30 years. And we know the demand has spiked in the recent past, so thankfully that's happening. I heard Jerry Lynn Mackey and Russell Bowers on the morning show speak with the mother of a child who needs that type of support. And again, it's not just about how you speak, it's also things like regarding swallowing. It's also things about understanding just very simple directions, like lay your paper there, pick your crayon up. These speech language pathologists can really be the difference between getting off to a reasonable start in school to a absolute flop in the first couple of years, because you don't have the support you need. How easy is it to catch up in the school system? Not easy at all. So thankfully those 5 are being added. Similar conversation. You hear the conversation on this program and stories in amongst your social circles about home care. Governments at all levels talk a big game about aging in place, remaining in your home longer in life. So this is one specific conversation inside that envelope. There was a pledge made, I'm going to say a decade ago. The government was talking about allowing for a spouse or a family member to stay home and get paid as a home care support worker. It kind of went away, but it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? If you are approved by a social worker assessment in your home that you do need and should get home care, would it not be beneficial that if a loved one has the wherewithal and the capacity to stay at home and provide said support, to take that time away from work and to be compensated for it? Because we're going to pay someone. So would it not make sense if a loved one is up to the task and has gone through an assessment as well from a social worker to be the provider of home care support? I think that's a worthwhile conversation to have. It's probably a money saver. And then you try to add in the complications associated with your overall well-being if you're lonely or if you're isolated. And they're two different things. You can be around people all the time and still feel lonely. And then, of course, people may indeed be isolated. Just a couple hours here and there with home care support. The kids are all grown, maybe moved away. It's the price tag implications on top of the dignified life that we want people to have. The research is pretty clear on this stuff. Increased risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, a weakened immune system, obesity, depression, anxiety, cognitive decline, dementia, up and down the line. I think there's a real solid argument for home care support to be provided by a loved one, a family member, if appropriate. So someone wanted to put that out there, consider it out there. And on that front, we just mentioned memory skills. Congratulations to the students at Gonzaga. They're one of only 3 groups in Canada to receive the 2025 Vimy Inspires Tomorrow grant. So apparently they've developed 3 different technological devices to help seniors improve their memory skills. Absolutely brilliant work done by them. Let's see if we cannot get, at some point, Alpita Patro, member of the creators of Tomorrow, the STEM Club at Gonzaga, to talk about what they've designed, the 3D printing memory services for seniors. So pretty entertaining, pretty interesting exercise for high school students to take on. But one of 3 groups in the country to win a very prestigious grant. It'd be great to have them on the show to talk about the why and exactly what they've created here. I think that'd be interesting. All right. I don't know how to dovetail this, but social media, helpful, also huge problem. And we do know, we've talked about some of the issues regarding some of the dangers of social media, and not to be stoking fear, but we hear the stories and we have to be aware of it, and certainly for our youth. Look, when the kids were growing up, you want them to have that sense of independence, that you trust them. But of course, there are so many digital evils lurking around every single corner in the palm of their hand on their smartphone, that those types of conversations are pretty important. I'm not going to try to draw a direct link to this next story, but it's part of the considerations that we all have to entertain. And this is the bloody Marcus Hicks story. Former teacher, volleyball coach, he's now pled guilty and agreed statement of facts to 54 charges. He was facing over 200 charges. We're not going to get into some of the stories of the specifics that's been released in the court document. I mean, it's the epitome of evil. Some of the charges: 13 counts of sexual assault, 6 counts of luring a child, using a disguise, possessing and accessing child pornography, sexual exploitation, breach of trust. I mean, some of the 35 complainants were as young as 12. And we won't get into some of the pathetically painful details of some of the crimes that he has committed, because he's already pled guilty to 54 of over 200 charges. Adding the stories regarding the Tony Humvees and the Bruce Escotts of the world, that level of awareness of understanding what's out there in the community, as opposed to just trying to instill that little red light that goes off in your head, or that pang of worry in your belly that makes you feel like, I should be very careful here. You know, how you approach it as a parent, that's up to you, because there's no handbook. Nobody has a this is right, this is wrong necessarily for parents to have those difficult conversations, but let's do it. How are we doing out there, Dave? Let's get her going. All right. What's this say? Oh, I haven't heard much from Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services, other than the fact that they pride themselves in the partnership with healthcare professionals. But we also know at the same time that 5 internal medicine doctors at St. Clair's have put forward their en masse resignation. It kicked in on July the 1st, where they will be no longer performing any duties outside contractual obligations. No evenings, no weekends. Resignation takes effect on October 1st. They point back to the fact that their environment has become, quote unquote, unsafe for both patient care and provider well-being. They have also warned that don't shift the workload over to the Health Sciences Centre, because they're also working at capacity. In addition to those 5 doctors, we're told that 2 previously had resigned that were also internists. So what's being done to try to stave off this particular issue? We cannot be 5 internal medicine doctors short in one fell swoop come the 1st of October. So someone want me to put that back out there, consider it out there. And in healthcare, we're not going to let this go until we hear more and see more from the provincial government regarding the Auditor General's report on travel agency nurses. I mean, just think about the numbers. And that's only one part of the conversation. I mean, an annual cost of $400,000 for a travel agency nurse versus around $100,000-ish for a public sector nurse. I mean, when you hear from Yvette Coffey and others who are registered nurses and leadership at the Registered Nurses Union, this is galling. They are furious. I mean, you could have 4 public sector nurses for the cost of 1 travel agency nurse. And again, concession for me, and I think for most, there was a lot of change that came about regarding COVID. And then we had a firm reliance on them. Dr. Parfrey at NL Health Services says reliance on travel agency nurses had been reduced by some 42%. That's the good news. The big one we need to hear focus and attention from the government is, of course, on the possibilities of fraud. You know, to even say it out loud is infuriating. To know that there's people willfully sitting in an office, possibly knowing they're doing wrong, knowing that they're bilking the taxpayer, but doing it anyway. Maybe it's a lack of oversight. Maybe it's not actually criminal intent, but it is maddening to know that we have an AG doing important work, Ms. Hanrahan and her team. And yes, you can say we accept the recommendations. Yes, you say that you're also outraged, but what are you going to do about it? I'm not in the business at every turn saying heads must roll, but it kind of feels like they must in this circumstance. If required, whether it be law enforcement investigations or otherwise, we can't let this go, because this, Ms. Hanrahan says, is not a systemic issue. But it's not the first time we've heard about some very questionable practices in paying out invoices. So yeah, I understood the need and understand the need for travel agency nurses. I'm glad to know the reliance on them is going down, but this report is a real eye-opener, and let's hope that it doesn't just fall by the wayside like so many Auditor General reports of the past. All right, last one. So the Canadian Federation of Independent Business has their new report card out regarding interprovincial trade barriers, and we don't do well. We have an overall grade of C. We were told earlier in the year that the province is not going to sign on to a nationwide free trade agreement basically the finger has been pointed at the two major breweries, that those jobs would be in jeopardy if this trade agreement was signed onto and beer, for instance, became part of it. But it's more than beer. Bill C-5 went through Parliament and through the Senate, received royal assent. Part of that was to remove federally imposed trade barriers. But unless the provinces sign on, then we're not going to maximise the benefit to the taxpayer, to the consumer. So it looks like they've been able to figure it out. Ontario and Nova Scotia, they are apparently the models of free trade insofar as the interprovincial trade amongst the provinces and territories in the country, but we get a grade of C, and we're told we're not going to sign on, and they keep leaning in on the two breweries. Anyway, we're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That means you're in the queue to talk about what? Whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's begin this morning on line number 2. Good morning, Pat. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning.
Morning to you.
I'm interested in if the fire ban is still in place.
It was lifted on the 25th of June.
It was lifted on the 25th of June, and it's still you can light a fire?
Yeah.
You're saying?
So the province-wide ban was indeed lifted on the 25th of June. Same thing within the city. So at that point, until the 25th, no open fires, no charcoal barbecues, those types of things. But that ban has been lifted. Now, there is something called a fire hazard map that the government has, where they talk about the risks, but the ban has been lifted.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
No problem at all. All the best, Pat. Let's keep rolling here. Let's say good morning to the Ward 5 councillor here in the city of St. John's. That's Carl Ridgely. Good morning, Carl. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you doing?
Doing okay, thank you. How about you?
Good. On this lovely sunny day, I can guarantee you we can get used to these. These are good. But they cause some problems too. And one of the problems is in Kilbride, I suppose. And I know you had a couple of callers yesterday. You had Tam and Robert call you. And you spoke to Councillor Davis about it a short time later. But it's about the well situation in Kilbride and the 6 or 7 residents that are there now that their water is extremely low. Or I got 5 or 6 wells that are completely dry. So it's concerning.
No doubt. And so the argument, just so people maybe missed the show yesterday, is people who have been in the area for some 60 years and saying this is the first time they've ever had the well run dry. Some wells are low, some are actually bone dry. And the city says that it's because of construction and because of the lack of rain and that type of stuff. Or pardon me, it's because of the lack of rain. But there's been dry years. It's not that long ago that we were told you can't wash your car, you can't water your lawn, and the wells weren't running dry in Kilbride. So what's your message? Or before we get to that, what was discussed at council last night?
So at the private meeting, this has been discussed numerous times all around, and I keep in contact with the residents, on a regular basis. So I'm in contact with Mr. Wall, Tom, Wince, like everybody. I'm in contact with these people on a regular basis. And so in 2023, construction ended, and from there. So there was 8 wells, 7 or 8 wells that were drilled because people lost the water immediately as soon as the construction started. They went down 21 feet in front of these people's houses, and they installed pipe, which is infrastructure that had to go in. So that's a given. We couldn't. That work had to be completed, but they're 21 feet down below the road, and so they put the pipe in, then they filled this pipe with crushed stone, and you end up making basically a French drain, and it just drains the water. We got Williams Gully across from these residents. So Paddy, I'm 58 years old. I grew up in the Goulds, driving the main road like every day of my life, basically. And this water in there, like, there was always a river running in front of Murray's farm there, right on the corner. There was always water in Williams' Gully, is called. And like there forever and ever, like whether it's summer or winter, it was always full. Like all these waterways are dry. So, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, and I think a lot of council somewhat agrees with me, but the construction ended in 23. They did replace 8 wells, like I said, and then so now in 24 we had wells start to go dry. Now, sometimes people can lose the water right away. There's other times you hit a certain vein, it might take a year depending on how wet the ground is, and then you get your rainfall and snow melt and everything else. So that supplies them again. But I do believe that the work on the road is a contributing factor in people's wells going dry. So in 24, just to bring you up to speed, the city did go in and assess all the wells again, or not anybody that agreed to it. So they were monitoring the wells to see if they went up or down and everything else. And in November last year, 24, we had a lot of rain. So I don't know if anybody can remember, but we had a lot of rain in November. And the wells, they all rebounded because they are surface wells. So in February, we got a report from staff saying that, the wells rebounded and as far as staff were concerned, it was done. There's, this is it. The wells are back. Everybody got the water, so we're good again. I still had concerns. I voiced them at that time in February, and so then, 2 weeks ago, I get a call from, a resident that's there 63 years, and his well has gone dry. And then another one, and then it just continued. So then I brought it up again, still, concerned, and here we are today now. So the city has advised me, and I have advised the residents that, there's a couple of options: is get a hydrologist, or take it to court. So anyway, we, or I say we, mean me and the residents, we do have a hydrologist hired now, and so they're going to do a report and present it to the city, and then hopefully we can get a resolution to this for the residents for forever, basically.
In the short term, is there anything the city can or should be doing for the residents who have seen the wells run dry?
So a couple of the residents themselves have put their own water containers there. I think there's 1,000-liter containers or 1,000 gallons, but they have done their own thing. They are, bringing in water themselves. I don't think this is something that the city does right now, or they did do it in the past, but they got rid of it. For 23 and 23, when they were doing the construction, that was part of the contract, that anybody that lost their water, that the contractor had to keep water to their houses while the work was ongoing. So for the construction that happened, yes, there was water provided, but since there is no water, and it's not something that the city wants to get into. And I agree, because of legalities and contamination, and it's just there is issues with bringing water to a residence.
Absolutely. There's a variety of concerns that would be quite obvious. So not much in the way of solstice for the Kilbride residents who are impacted today. So what's the timeline for the hydrologist's work to begin and to potentially to end?
So I actually spoke to Tom last night about, it was around 9:30, and he's meeting with the hydrologist this morning. There is some information that they need me to get, and I'm on that this morning. And so we'll, I would say to get a report from a hydrologist by the time they looks at the engineer drawings and the historic, water and waterways and what was there and what's not there now. My guess would be it'd be a couple, at least 2 to 3 weeks. Again, I can't speak for the hydrologist because I really don't know what's involved in this report. Right?
Understood. Whenever you have information you'd like to share to the masses, you're welcome back on the show, Carl.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate it.
Appreciate your time. Take care.
Bye.
Scott Ridgely, Ward 5 councillor here in the city of St. John's. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Joe. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you doing?
Doing okay. How about you?
Good. It's a nice day, right?
Beautiful.
Yes. Paddy,
sorry, Joe. Joe?
Yes.
I can't really hear you clearly. Keep going. Maybe just shuffle around a couple of feet, see if we get a better connection.
Paddy?
Yeah.
When is Regatta Day of the year? Is it July or August?
It's the first Wednesday of August, this year the 6th.
Oh, I thought I heard on the radio it was July.
Well, if so, that's the very first I've heard of it. It's the first Wednesday in August is the traditional date for the regatta. Is that not the case this year, Dave? I haven't heard different, I don't think. Anyway.
No, I heard it was July. Last Wednesday in July. That's what I heard.
Well, I don't think that's the case, but let's see what the Royal... All right, here. So I'll go right to the website for the Royal St. John's Regatta. And, I'll tell you when it is. It's July the 30th. What?
I know. I thought I heard it was July.
Yeah, I haven't paid much attention to it. But yeah, it says join us on July the 30th of 2025. 3 weeks, 5 days, 17 hours and 51 minutes from now.
Yes. I was never to a gathering in my life, but I'm going to try to get there the year.
Now that you say it, now I do recall hearing it because they moved it because of the Canada Summer Games.
Yes.
Right.
I thought it was July, Paddy.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, Joe. I'm wrong, you're right.
Yes. Not too often. You're wrong, though.
Oh, well, when I am, I'm happy to admit it because no skin off my back. But you're right, it's the 30th of July. There you go.
Yes. Yes, okay, Paddy, thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Thanks for calling, Joe.
Have a nice day.
You too. All the best.
Yeah. All right.
Which reminds me, it's also the day after the Alex Newick and Friends Golf Tournament, I'm pretty sure, which is the 29th of July, which that's going to be a great event. Got a bunch of the Habs coming down. And speaking of the Habs, man, a couple of big signings here in the last few days too. Anyway, I'm sure you want to talk about that. Let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 5. Good morning, Cyril. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Paddy. Long-time listener.
Welcome to the program.
Yeah. This garbage thing, I haven't been following a lot. Certainly your show the same. I miss you in a lot of days out around lovely weather. I know in Clareville there that they had it going there that you had to have a card and all this stuff, and then they cancelled because there were so many people who didn't have one. Why did they want the people have a card? What was the idea of it?
So they could better track who's using it and what's being dumped. So what they have done in the past, of course, you show up, buddy's got a clipboard and you know who you are and what you're dumping off, and then they have to physically input it in. Apparently with the access card, you'll be able to simply to scan it, so it removes that level of paperwork that has to be done. So that's the basics of why.
Yes, very good, and yes, I can understand that now. Okay. Well, I've been in there before. The guy checking the trailer and all that stuff, and out with the clipboard and everything. But the only thing, if Don I've seen was people is not going to go and get that card right away. I've phoned you before about. Back a couple of years ago, I live out there in the Southwest Dam. And halfway up to the Trans-Canada, we got a couple of 2 or 3 places. One place in particular, it's a double gravel pit. One belonged to the Department of Transportation, and the other one time belonged to a contractor. And you can go in there; the road is good. So about a week after the deadline that you had to have your card, I went in there and check, and I see somebody cleaned out a house and dumped all goes high as say probably a full pickup load of household garbage from clothes to whatever as garbage goes, eh? So Mr. Loftus, that's his portfolio, got to do with and that and the roads.
I'm sorry?
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm just listening. What was the question?
Yes. No, because I've called to his office a few times. I think it's 4 times now I've called, and he have never got back to me. And I want to ask him too about the roads down there. We got like a lot of potholes and places that got dozens of feet of pavement gone, sides of the roads and everything. And right now we got a lot of traffic of just tourists going around. Every community down this way got a walking trail. In some of the communities, like Hodges Cove, they got a big marine center. Long Beach, down here in Goosery, we got a walking trail. So people come back for a day or two and use those trails. And the roads is not only bang, bang, bang. and especially now the fishery have opened up, people towing around trailers, boats. Now, I guess probably this week or next week, the Capeland fishery, we're going to see probably 150 tractor trailers down there. It's going to be because just about every Capeland is landed in Trinity Bay is landed down there. Now they do land some in Hickman's Harbour, but we got people from the other side of the bay, Ice Content, the bottom of the bay, Dillow, wherever the boats come from, they come here in those communities, especially here where I'm from, and they land at Capeland, and that's hard on the roads, especially if you got a place that's tore up on the side of the road. Those trucks is going to make it worse because they almost got to be driving on the shoulder of the road to get along because you know those little roads like we got is so narrow. So anyway, I've been trying to get through to Mr. Lovelace's office, and I haven't got any response. I don't know since we got a new premier and we're going to have an election in the fall. I don't know if they got everything shut down that they don't want to talk to people or what's going on.
Well, that should never be the case. They're not just members of the House of Assembly when the House is open. They need to be accessible as best possible. So are you trying to call his constituency offices in Harbour Breton, or are you calling Confederation Building?
No, I'm down here. I'm calling a number that I got that I phoned the Confederation Building and a number that they gave me, and he got a go-to guy there. I don't know, it was last year I think I was talking to him, and now I can't. The answering machine, and you put in your message that you'd like to get a call. I've done that, I don't know, it's 3 times now or 4, and they haven't called me back. And I've also called a lady to the number where I got his number from, and she said, "Oh, funny, they haven't called you?" And nope, they haven't called me. And yes, I got to get back to the garbage thing. You know how it's really hard for people to, because all those communities, there's all fishermen down there, and you go through and you see probably a guy who haven't fished for 2 or 3 years or 4 or 5, he with a pile of old crab pots and people with cars and different things, and it was really hard for them to get up in the morning and carry that to the dump when you could just drive in there. And now, I don't know what's going to happen to us. Those things keep spiraling up, and it's not only maybe the community I live in, but it's in a lot of communities, and I do a little bit of driving around. Only the last week or so, I took a tour down through one side of Bonavista Bay, Trinity Bay one side, and Bonavista up on the other, and you see it in a lot of places. And, you need that little bit of push to get people to pick up their or clean up their garbage, like people down the road from me. There's an old shed that after been fall down there about 4 or 5 or 6 years ago, and the people, they got a house there living in my community, but they live in St. John's or back and forth on the weekends, and apparently they ain't going to clean it up. Because, well, first of all, the shed was falling down, and then they had to push it down because afraid kids or somebody go in there and probably trip a post or something, and then it's down on the rid. So they just tore it down by the side of the road and left it. And you got people, like I just said then, piles of old crab pots, old steel, old cars, and there's no, like the people, they're not interested in cleaning it up. And like I just said then, we're not the only community. So.
Yeah, and so if anyone belonged to the Minister's office, whether it be in the constituency office down in Harbour Breton or working out of the Confederation Building, I think Sarah wouldn't mind a call back.
Yes, and see what, like I said, because usually every year, just about every year, we've got those few ton of asphalt. And if we got, like, down here now, from Little Archie's down to Southport, we got about, I don't know, could be 5, 6, 8 or 10 places that the pavement is real bad, you know. So they would come and do those bad places, like, you know, maybe a semi-dump load up the road there and down the road, like like here in our community, and I understood that they were supposed to do some work on a piece of road here that we're having a lot of trouble with in the winter with the plow truck, and we have a cemetery alongside. We've had trouble there before. Truck went out in the cemetery there a few years ago. So they come and done a lot of getting up with the machine and looking up the road, and people from the high roads, and they were at it in there for about a month, but they haven't fixed anything. And even to the cemetery, well, there's only a job done, like they dug the dirt out of the cemetery, and well, they had to move a body out of was just have to be buried in that area. And so if we do have a big flood of rain in the winter or late the fall, about the same. Some of the fill, Class A fill, they put along by the side of the road, after they done all this, fixed it all. All that came down in the last spring. They had to get a contractor to come take that out. So is it still going to keep happening, or... where do we stand on a lot of things? And like I just said then, you can't get out to. Now, I don't know if anybody from got to doing with the cemetery has been talking to anybody. I haven't heard, but like I said, going up that hill there, they've had a nice bit of trouble over the years with the dirt flowing down. What happens is the water runs down the pavement and is tilted on that side, and all the fill goes along bit of guide rails and everything. All that runs out into the cemetery. So I don't know what they're going to do to fix it, but they've been looking at it. So anyway, that's my big rant for the day.
And I appreciate you doing it on the show. Thanks for the call, Cyril.
Yep, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break in. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Sam. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you today?
Great today. How about you?
Oh, not too bad at all. Paddy, I got a call this morning about 6 o'clock. I had to come in town for a couple of days, and out in Tickle Cove, 4 o'clock this morning, a guy heard a grinder going, so he got up and he called his father, and time they got out to have a look over to the wharf, because he knew exactly that's where it was coming from. And by the time they got out, there was 2 guys driving up the road, and they had my motor aboard their car. Right, they were after cutting the lock of it. It was a kicker motor I had. It's a Honda, 5 horsepower. She was 2023, and I started the motor twice. And the reason why I had it for safety concerns. I got broke down one time out, and I said, well, I'm going to put the extra motor on me boat, right? So I said, well, that was pretty good. So I'm on my way out to Tickle Cove now, and I'm meeting the RCMP there around 11:30 or 12 o'clock. But just in case anybody happened to be going around trying to sell an outboard motor, a small one like that, it's a Honda, and the serial number is BADC 102084. Now, I guess for the ones that take, so I guess that's probably one of the first things they'll do is end up get rid of the serial number on it, right? So anyhow, the RCMP is notified, right? And I got to go out and check my boat because there was nobody down in the boat yet because we're waiting for the police, because we wanted to see if there's anything else stolen out of the boat, because there were GPSs and everything in the boat, right? So someone is up around nighttime for a little small community, with 8 or 10 people into it, and only 4 or 5 boats over to the wharf, right? So I said I wanted to give a call to make sure that the word is out there if anybody's going around trying to sell a little motor out there in the area or any Urbana Vista area or wherever, that keep in mind there's a little 5 horsepower Honda motor, and like I say, the motor was started twice. Started it up when I put it on the boat, and when I put my boat out there last week, I started the motor again, and just for to make sure it was working. Right? So that was the final surprise this morning.
Yeah, it's just awful. You say that you heard the grinder going. So how was it being held down to require a grinder?
I had the chained on and locked, right?
Okay, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
They're not cheap these days either.
No, matter of fact, for that one, I got the bill here in my hand. I paid $21.50 for it, and that was in September 23rd. And they just gave me the replacement price here at Hander, and it's $2,900 for to replace that motor.
For a 4-stroke, 5-horsepower motor.
Yeah.
Man, oh man. Gone are the days when you could pick up like a 9.9 for a few $100s.
Oh yes, those days are long gone.
Yes,
right?
so is my Evinrude 9.9. Someone stole it.
Yeah, well, but so you had yours stolen too.
Yeah, years ago. It still haunts me.
Oh my God! Did you ever get it back?
No, can't.
Oh yeah. Well, the police says they know a couple of people in the area that's always out doing like that, and they will be, after they talks to me, going and visiting those people, right? So it's going to be interesting to see. I'd love to get it back.
No. Of course you would. $3,000 worth of outboard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Extraordinary stuff.
Indeed. Yeah. Other than that, Petty, I'll be calling in sometime with a report on the recreation fishery, but I wanted to get that one on today, right? So I'm not going to take up any more of your time. And hopefully I might hear something back later on.
Hopefully so. Keep me in the loop, Sam.
Indeed I will. I'll get it back. I'll give you a call, Petty.
Thanks, Sam. I appreciate it. Good luck. No problem.
Yep.
All right, bye-bye. 5-horsepower Honda, $3,000. Wow. Yeah, I still got an old 6-horsepower Johnson that she still starts first pull. I mean, that thing's got to be 45 years old. Anyway, I'm not going to squeeze another caller in before the news because we're right up against it. But Sam Kelly just mentioned the recreational food fishery. Apparently yesterday was Minister Thompson's birthday. And still plenty of emails. People are frustrated, even if it's not just about an expansion as requested or demanded by some, but even in just the essence of fairness when compared to the rest of Atlantic Canada and how their access to being able to get out on the water, get a few cod is so vastly different than ours. Add to it, and this I think is a very good question for setting the stage, is if there was an assessment of the spawning biomass of northern cod that made it doable to double the total allowable catch. What is it, from 18 to 38,000 metric ton? Now, of course, the important side of that is exploitation rate is a really important facet of it. Compared to other northern cod stocks, we have a very low exploitation rate, but if we can expand the commercial fishery, was there not an opportunity to even for minor adjustment upwards for number of days, number of fish? Because every year, same old, 39 days, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 5 per person. Other parts of Atlantic Canada, no, 7 days a week. Out you go. Let's take a break. When we come back, lots of time left for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 4. Ralph, you're on the air.
Hello, Mr. Daly. How are you doing?
Doing okay. How about you?
Oh, not bad. I'm calling today about our water situation. It's still the same. Nothing has changed. No updates. I've contacted Mr. Harvey's office and Mrs. Don Chaplin's office left them messages known as return calls, and we're waiting for the water to clear up so we can do laundry.
So we're talking about St. Bride's, right, Ralph?
St. Bride's, yeah. The funding is there and everything, but nothing is moving. So they haven't. I mean, here it is going in July now, and still they haven't. No updates in the last couple of months on nothing. What's going on or anything.
So there's funding set aside to do exactly what? Like what needs to be done to the water delivery system?
Well, from what I heard, the last thing it was they're putting artesian wells in, and we call it Branch Road. There's 3 going there, 3 on the north side, and 2 on over in the Gulch. We call it. They're supposed to put an artesian wells in, and we haven't heard anything. They went and done a survey. They got water samples from all the artesian wells in St. Bride's and sent that in, and they all passed. So, but that's it. It ended there.
I don't know what the hold-up would be. Generally speaking, the hold-up is based on whether or not there's money, but you say the money's there.
The money is in the bank already waiting to get the work done. and they're supposed to send out. They were going to send out people that test the flow from the dam. Now, whatever reason they wanted to use that dirty friggin' water, I don't know, because the $146,000 or someone said to get people out to do a flow test on the dams. I mean, what a waste of friggin' money. We know how much water is coming out of it. We got lots of water. It's just no good.
Yeah, bizarre. Again, if the money's there, so I don't know if there's a hiccup with going to tender for someone to drill the artesian wells or what the issue might be, but we'll go right to the town and see if we can figure it out.
We don't know yet. We haven't. We sent a message into the council to find out, but no one knows nothing. No one around here. I've talked to several people, and they don't know anything about it either. Like, there's nothing, no updates, no nothing. That's what's going on. And this next thing you know, it's going to be winter again. I mean, it's coming. It doesn't matter how we look at it, and our water is still dirty. We're still having problems with it. And I was over and helped the guy. He had no water in his kitchen sink. It was plugged solid with mud and rocks. The pipes. I took the pipes apart and cleaned them out with the air compressor.
All right, Ralph, myself and Dave will see if we can't get an update from St. Bride's itself about exactly what's the hold-up. If you got the money, well, how come no action's been taken?
Yeah, thank you very much, and have a good day.
Same to you, Ralph. All the best. Bye-bye. We talk about the wells out in Kilbride and the issue in St. Bride's. I mean, there's communities, like I know Branch has had boil order advisory since like sometime in the 80s. There's somewhere in the neighborhood of 180 boil order advisories right now in this province. Then you add in places like New West Valley and the concerns we've had from that community about the dangerous levels of THMs. And that's a huge big deal. We know there's some work being done. Mayor Mike Taylor's been on the programme talking about it, but those are extremely dangerous levels. Then you add in places like Torbay and the contaminated wells because of some fire suppression activities and exercises at the airport. The government knew about it and didn't tell anybody until we were right up against it. So there's been a couple of meetings in Torbay. I don't think anything's actually been settled or solved there. So if anyone who's a resident of Torbay would like to give us an update about that, we'd be happy to take that on. Let's see here. Let's go to line number 2. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I have a bit of an issue here this morning. I need some help. Desperately need some help. Myself and my husband, we relocated from Alberta. We've been up there for a few years now, and we relocated from Alberta because we were living in the northern part. We're born and bred Newfoundlanders, and at the time when I moved up there, it was a great life restart, and we were doing well. However, the company we were working with decided to shut its doors permanently, unexpectedly. That happened last year, so we've been trying and nothing changed. So with the promises of family down here, that we'd have accommodations, that we'd be able to stay with them, we sold everything we had. We were only renting at the time, and we sold everything we had, and we came home. Myself and my children and my husband. Well, he's my fiancé, but it's just well to call him my husband, I guess. And anyway, we came home, and like I said, we were promised that we were going to be given accommodations with our family. And things changed. We got home here on the 21st of June, and things changed drastically. A particular person in my family who said that she was going to accommodate us and is still able to, decided that, she can't do that now. And so here we are. I've made arrangements for my children. They're safe and sound. They're living with my oldest daughter. She's an adult, and she's basically out on her own. But she has no room for us because she's also living with family members of her fiancé. But they were able to accommodate my children, which was really good and appreciated. And but myself and my husband, we're homeless, basically. Right now we're staying at an Airbnb, but we have the little bit of money that we had left, thinking that we were going to get to stay with family. We're basically broke from staying at an Airbnb so that we wouldn't be homeless. We have to check out of here tomorrow morning, and we have nowhere to go. Nowhere to go whatsoever. I've contacted Newfoundland Labrador Housing, and
they said that we'd be considered as travelers, so the best they could do was put us in a shelter. We're not used to that kind of life, and I don't want to go there. They can put me in a women's shelter, they can put him in a men's shelter, but we don't want to do that. We have some job interviews in town today, so it's not like we're trying to live off a system or depend on other people or anything like that. Like we're working people, and we want to go to work. My husband, he pretty much has a job in there today. He's a heavy equipment operator, and he pretty much has a job in there today. They just want to meet him and see what he can do. And myself, I've got a couple of job interviews in town today, so we don't have a vehicle either. We prefer to get a place in town, but we're at rock bottom. We have nothing to start with right now. We were just waiting to get some work going and get a couple of paychecks in, or even just a paycheck, so that we can get a place to stay. But I've also contacted income support, and same story. We're considered as travelers, even though we're born and bred Newfoundlanders, and I understand that. We've been out of the province now for a few years. But we're just basically looking for somebody that can help us in some way. Somebody that can probably give us a place that we can live in and, sign a promise to pay, something that we can, we'll catch up with the rent there when we get a paycheck in. So I'm just wondering if there's any good people in around town that can provide us some accommodations or give us some kind of help or advice, or because we have no other, as of 12 o'clock tomorrow, we have no place to go, only the streets. And we're good people, we don't deserve that. Like, if I had known that my family was going to go bad and not help us the way that they promised, I could have made accommodations up in Alberta. We could have relocated in Alberta instead of coming home. But I was promised, and I was begged, and I was pleaded, oh, come home with us, there's no place like home. Anyway, welcome home, here we are. And what a welcome we got.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear of your struggles, and I'm not going to ask you anything about the family dynamics because that wouldn't be fair. So if there's anybody listening that can be of any assistance, if they contact us, we'll be happy to join you two together. I certainly can't make any promises, but every now and then we find a solution to some of these types of stories. So if anyone listening to the program this morning has heard the caller and their actual circumstances and may have some idea about how they can help, please do indeed contact us. So is the number on my screen a number where we can get you?
Yes, that's my cell phone number. It's still a Newfoundland cell phone number. I never bothered to change it.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, you can certainly reach me there, and I also have an email if you wanted to take it when we're done on the air.
I'll tell you what, I'll put you on hold. You can give that to Dave, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Let's see what we can do for you. Oh, boy. No problem. You take good care and good luck. So, Dave, that call is on hold. Let's see. You mentioned off the top of the show there's a new report out from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business regarding interprovincial trade. For years we were told too complicated, can't be done, can't risk all these jobs, even though we know it costs Canadian consumers billions of dollars per year for some of these manufactured barriers to be in place. Now, Bill C-5 has made its way through the Parliament and the Senate has received royal assent. The federal barriers are gone. Some of them, different provincial regulation regarding trucking and those types of things, which needn't be the case. I think there's still a lot of confusion out there about exactly what's included in these trade barriers. We were told in this province we're not going to sign on to the nationwide free trade agreement. Look to Nova Scotia, Ontario, and other provinces that are trying to figure it out. We've signed a memorandum of understanding with the province of New Brunswick. Based on what, we're not entirely sure. To dig into the report card a little bit further, right after the break, we're going to speak with the VP Atlantic for the CFIB. That's Louis-Philippe Gauthier. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 6 to say good morning to the Vice President Atlantic at the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. That's Louis-Philippe Gauthier. Good morning, Mr. Gauthier. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Welcome back to the program.
Well, thank you.
So before we dig into how we arrived at a C in our overall grade in Newfoundland and Labrador, what did the scorecard look like for the CFIB to look at interprovincial trade barriers?
Well, essentially, ever since the CFTA was signed in 2017, as you can imagine, for our members, it's an important thing. Our data has shown over the years that businesses wanted to see freer trade across the country between provinces. And our most recent data shows that 9 in 10 of our members want their provincial government to act faster in removing those barriers. Of course, there's a context of the trade dispute with our neighbors to the south that's motivating everybody. The opportunity to liberate trade either from products, services, or just labor mobility across the country are all important things for small businesses. So, we looked at it again, and this is a snapshot in time, as you can imagine, with all the enthusiasm and the work that's being done by different provinces and by the federal government. There's been movement. There's been more movement on this file just over the last few months than ever since the Canadian Free Trade Agreement internal to the country was signed in 2017. So there is momentum. It's positive from that perspective. It's important not to lose momentum, as sometimes it happens when the political need is no longer there. So let's hope that the momentum continues. But it gave a different picture from across the country because there's multiple different approaches that are being taken.
Yeah, and Bill C-5, which made its way through the Senate to remove federal barriers to provincial trade. Can you give the listener some examples of the provincial barriers that remain in this province? We were told by the government we would not be signing on to an expanded nationwide free trade. People point fingers directly at things like the breweries, Molson and Labatt. They would be at risk, I'm told, even though I'm not convinced of that, if indeed there was a trade barrier, that trade barrier eliminated. So can you give us an example of some of the ones that remain in place? Because I think there's a lot of confusion about what this actually even means.
Well, for example, registration of companies from one province to the other. These are all fees and or paperwork that they have to fill out. For us, those are barriers to trade. Just the cost and the effort to be able to get either the company registered for some elements of what they do and or elements certified is a reality that businesses face. An example would be if you have a microbrewery, for example, in Newfoundland and Labrador, and they want to sell their products in other provinces, well, that's not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of barriers from one province to the other that are in place. That's one of the things that we do measure is the liberation of, if you will, of alcohol sales across provinces. Now, saying that it might have an impact, for example, in the case of Newfoundland and Labrador, on two major breweries, the reality is, even with that being said, our members in Newfoundland and Labrador would want to see their ability to be able to sell and to move labor from one province to the other so that they can gain opportunities and access to markets. Government outright saying, well, all right, we're not going to participate is not necessarily conducive in trying to allow businesses on the island and in Labrador to be able to do what they do best, which is create businesses and develop their markets. So from our perspective, with a C- in Newfoundland and Labrador this year, we measured specific items. So, for example, the number of Canadian Free Trade Agreement exemptions that are in place. Newfoundland and Labrador gets a D on that. When we look at specific markers, like do the businesses still have to register when they get to Newfoundland and Labrador? Well, yes, and they still have to pay. In some provinces, that's not the case. You just have to register and you don't have to pay. So there are other provinces that are doing innovative things that Newfoundland and Labrador would be well advised to take a look at. So overall, the grade came down to C. Are we happy to see that there's movement, for example, with the signing of the MOU with New Brunswick? Of course, but the issue with MOUs, and it's the point that we've been making for over 2 years now, which is we'd like to see mutual recognition on the books legally, just like it happened in Nova Scotia, and they've been leading the country for the last few months on that front. PEIs put that on the books. So there's already two examples in Atlantic Canada where they've basically constrained themselves as a government and put it on in law that we will mutually recognize the rules of another province if they recognize ours. And that way, that just essentially, not automatically, but almost automatically makes it so that a business can operate between the two provinces without facing paperwork restrictions, costs, and etc. But the issue with MOUs is that there's no timeline. No. So if we ask New Brunswick and Newfoundland Labrador, where are you at? What's happening? When is this going to change anything in the reality of small, medium-sized businesses? We potentially get crickets. I'd hope we'd get answers. But there's a difference between signing MOUs and saying we want to do this, we want to work forwards, and doing what Nova Scotia and PEI have done in Atlantic Canada, which is put it on the books. It doesn't mean that there's not issues with mutual recognition, but the reality is that from our perspective, that's why we've been requesting it for 2 years, and that's why we gave bonus points to provinces that have enshrined it in law in this report.
We've got a bunch of MOU balls in the air here in this province, to be honest with you. You know, labour mobility, of course, is an important one, Louis-Philippe, but also for some of your members, there would be concern regarding protection of jobs inside of one province where they might be established or where they have their home base. How do you measure that risk of job loss versus just eliminating a barrier?
Well, if jobs or businesses are fully protected because of a barrier, then the question is, now, how innovative and how much development can happen within that sector? So that would be one train of thought. The reality is having barriers is just an impediment to businesses doing what they do best. And when it comes to saying protecting, well, is there really a tangible risk of losing, or is it a competitive risk? You know, some have made the argument that some businesses are not necessarily ready to compete. Our position would be, businesses compete every day. Businesses have to find their best a way to putting their best foot forward and maintaining their clients and developing their markets. And from that perspective, the confidence is there in the small business, medium-sized businesses being able to do that. Reverting to arguments of protectionism is exactly what put us in the situation that we are in. Either through our reports or through reports from financial institutions, there is a substantial amount of economic activity that could be liberated by essentially treating Canada as an open free trade zone. Which it should be. We should be able to conduct business and conduct ourselves. We are Canadians and run our businesses everywhere across the country from one ocean to the other. Now, I'll give you an example. OHS rule, occupational health and safety rules. There's generally mines everywhere. There's drilling everywhere. There's rules in every province to make sure that employees and workers are safe. Just harmonizing those across Canada is immense work because there's little tweaks here and there, and just getting an inch forward and getting all the provinces and territories sitting in a room trying to hammer out, well, all right, our rule says this, your rule says that, your rule says this, times 12, and trying to harmonize that is painstakingly slow. And that's why 2 years ago we started recommending to government saying, no, just do mutual recognition. Your rules are good enough for mine, and my rules are good enough for yours, and let's just operate our businesses from that perspective. That way we wouldn't be spending all this effort and taking all of this time to reducing the barriers to trade or more labor mobility across Canada. Now, think about this. In 2017, all the provinces agreed to the Canadian Free Trade Agreement. They've made more movement forward in the last few months. So it's all fine and dandy that governments are working at it and et cetera, and there's reconciliation tables and all that work. But when the political will is there, things can move. And that's what we're hoping is at this point that everybody continues with the momentum, and that even if the trade tensions alleviate or fluctuate over the next 3 years, the opportunity is there and now to be able to address the fact that businesses have some friction of being able to work from one province to the other. And then after that, there'll always be some issues, but the reality is, from our perspective at least there's momentum. And the snapshot we gave today, this week, essentially gives us where we're at, and we'll be looking at it regularly, as you can imagine, over the next little while.
A couple of quick ones before I let you go. I don't even know how to ask this one, but here it goes. Does geography play a role here? Because not every province is created equal insofar as being on the mainland versus we're pretty far afield insofar as being remote and access to the major population bases. Do you think from your perspective that geography plays a role in the creation of and or the continuance with any barriers?
Well, for example, one of their barriers is just transportation from a Newfoundland and Labrador perspective. There's a reasons why the political parties had positions during the federal election as to what are they going to do to alleviate the cost for transportation of products from the mainland to the island, for example, or from the mainland to Prince Edward Island. And we're still waiting for government to fulfill its promises from that end. But those are things that impact business. Whenever that you have something that will impact on cost, or adds friction to time, to delivery, and etc. Those are all things that businesses learn to deal with over time, but it's frictions that we should be working over time to try to eliminate and minimize as much as possible.
Let's put some dollars and cents into the conversation. So prior to 2017, it used to be told in the media stories that the cost with these interprovincial trade barriers, the cost to consumers nationwide was in excess of $1 billion. What kind of numbers are we using these days?
Well, it depends on the analysis. The numbers, generally speaking, I think your audience would potentially be able to frame it this way. Even if removing all the internal trade barriers doesn't compensate for the tariffs that are applied internally by Canada or the U.S. on products moving with our biggest market there, the number is substantial amount. It's the billions and billions that would potentially add to our economy and the provinces and with the federal economy. So from a tangible perspective, we're years away of being able to see the benefits of this because it has taken so long. And because we have right now, for example, a whole slew of different approaches. Some provinces have taken mutual recognition as an approach, which is what we recommend. Others have started signing MOUs. Now, to give you an example, the MOU aspect, just imagine 12 all the provinces, all the territories multiplied by that same number. And we're looking at, 169 different agreements. The last thing we want to see out of all this is all specific agreements between the provinces where each one of the provinces has additional exemptions. We'd be looking at the Canadian Free Trade Agreement 2.0 at that point. It'd be just a mess. So hopefully that gets sorted over the next months and years. It's typically, this isn't just like red tape. It's not a sexy subject to discuss. But these barriers are real for many businesses and for professional labor that's certified. And in the context of today, where the businesses are clearly telling us that qualified labor is the top concern that they have, having the ability to bring in labor without having restrictions from other provinces or moving your labor with your business to do a piece of business somewhere else should be as liberalized as possible from coast to coast.
Yeah, I mean, we've done it with Red Seal journeymen in Atlantic Canada. We've done it with doctors in Atlantic Canada. So that's a clear example that it can be done.
Yeah, it can be done.
No
yes.
question. Sir, I appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this.
My pleasure.
Take care. Bye-bye. That's Louis-Philippe Gauthier. He's the VP Atlantic for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty.
Hi there.
Hi. I just wanted to inform people if they're going to go to motor registration today for a walk-in, they won't get seen because they're booked up.
So you've been there today to find this out?
Yes.
And so
I was just there a little while ago, and they went, and when I went up, there was no walk-ins today.
They're not accepting walk-ins, period? All booked appointments?
No.
Okay.
Only booked appointments. I heard a lady saying that they had 300 appointments booked today for in there.
Well, if DMV, and I guess you're talking about the one in Mount Pearl, are you?
Yes, I am.
So if you were planning on going to the DMV in Mount Pearl today, don't bother.
No, don't bother unless you have an appointment.
Right. Good point.
Yeah. Yes, I know you can do things online, but some things happen that you got to go in there to try to get something done, but that's beside the point. But just to inform people, because people might be coming in from right around the bay today to get something done and don't have an appointment.
It's helpful advice. No need to waste your time if you're planning on the DMV today. Today is not the day. Thanks for doing this.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. There we go. 300 booked appointments at DMV today. Apparently, it's a bit of a gong show in there anyway, which I'll put out there one more time. What was involved with the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicle, when we talk about the Green Report and that super secret Rothschild report about divesting our oil stakes, our operations at Bull Arm, the Liquor Corporation, DMV. We're not allowed to see, apparently, even though you and I spent our money on it because government doesn't have any money. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Lyle. You're on the air.
Hi, Paddy.
Hi there.
No, I'm just calling in now. I had an MRI done on May the 5th.
Yep.
And as of 15 minutes ago, it still hasn't been read. That's going on 2 months.
Are you signed up with My Health NL?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay, so that's a long time to wait for results.
It is.
Yep.
And well, the wife just called out now to the MRI department, which you've been calling this past 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and the woman told her to call back any time at all. So this morning she called, and the woman gave her a complaints line to call, but she said that could take 3 or 4 weeks or 3 or 4 days before you're there from them. But it's a long spell now. It's gone to the radiologist to be read, and the doctor can't go any further to check me out until he gets reported this MRI. So I'm just kind of confused and kind of I know, I know the healthcare system is in poor shape, but I mean, say that's really poor.
Yeah, I mean, and I would imagine you're worried. I'm not trying to put emotions in your head, but when you're waiting for test results, there is that little pang of worry. I know that's what happens to me.
Oh, definitely.
So, it's all bad enough when people have to wait such a long time to get an MRI. This sort of a wait to get the MRI read and the results posted to your My Health NL account is a long, long time. So they gave you a number to call for client relations, was it?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Then that's not going to be any good.
And the wife called there and he said, okay, if you want to make a complaint or a compliment, do so. It'll take several days before we can get back to you. Now, I was lucky. I thought I'd had to wait a long spell to get the MRI, but I was only 3 months I had to wait. So I was relieved. I was great. Okay, great. Within 2 or 3 weeks, I'd find out what could be happening, right?
Yeah.
And so, but... Like when the doctor gave me, he said, I'm going to give you an MRI on your lower back. I said, yeah. I said, I'll probably be dead, but before I get that, he said, you might be.
Oh, that's pretty nonchalant.
Yeah, which I was expecting anyhow. I was expecting to wait probably 2 years. But as of now, I was really free. And when I was there was 2 other people who got MRIs done because he had temporary ones set up down in the Janeway.
That's right, yeah.
And it was great. I said, oh God, I was so relieved that I was getting it done, and they'd be able to check out, see what's going on with me. Now, I'm 79, so it probably doesn't matter anyhow, I suppose. So.
Well, it might. Anyhow, you never know. So, once again, what was the date where you had the MRI?
May the 5th.
May the 5th, and today is the 3rd of July. Got it.
Right.
And so, when was it delivered to the radiologist to be read?
I really don't know. The wife called out and said, no, it hasn't been sent to the radiologist. And then a couple of days, it must be about I'd say about a month, I think. And then she'd been calling out to see if it was read. No, I called the doctor's office. No, we haven't got it. The girl at the MRI department said, well, get your doctor to phone the radiologist. So I called our specialist and secretary said he can't very well do that. I mean, said if he done that for you, he got, say probably 20 patients, and that takes up a long spell. So he wouldn't be able. He just don't do that, right? Now once it's read, he can go in and see. Now, if they call me back and said yes, it's read, I can call his secretary and tell him he'll go in and see what the problem is there, and he'll call me with the results or whatever.
Right.
But he can't call him and ask him to read this, right? So it's just confusing. Say I had 3 other tests done, and them results came back within a week. And the doctor called me and told me they were okay, and so anyhow, that's all I just wanted to call about. See if any other people out there are in the same boat as me, that they're waiting for results of MRIs.
I would imagine you're not alone, Lyle, but I appreciate your time. Hopefully those results come back to its sweet.
I hope so. Bye. Very good, Paddy.
Appreciate your time.
All right, thanks now.
Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, I mean, usually the concern for wait times regarding MRI is getting in. From 5th of May to the 3rd of July, I think that would offer ample opportunity for the results to be read, you would think. How are we doing out there, Dave? Very quickly, so just new communication come from the St. John's Regional Fire Department. They say they are no longer going to issue separate fire advisories. Instead, they're encouraging residents to regularly check the provincial fire hazard map, which is an important one. So that's provided by the Department of Fisheries, Forestry and Agriculture. So here's how you read it. Before lighting a backyard fire using a permit to burn issued by the Regional Fire Department, important to understand what the current fire risk level means for St. John's Mount Pearl Paradise. So when you look at the map, the colours are pretty self-explanatory. Lower, moderate, blue and green. So when that's the case, open fire is permitted with a valid permit to burn. You can use your wood-burning appliances outside, your propane appliances, charcoal and propane barbecues. High, yellow. Open fires with permit to burn fires are prohibited. Very high or extreme, which are orange and red. No open fires, period. That includes with a permit. No outdoor wood-burning appliances permitted, period. Only propane appliances and charcoal propane barbecues are allowed. All right, so the St. John's Regional Fire Department no longer going to be issuing those standalone separate fire advisories, but you know the risk. You can assess it by looking at the provincial fire hazard map, which is very self-explanatory, to assess the risk where you live. Let's see here. If you're in and around town, the number to get on the show, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. We're taking a break and then we're coming back. Welcome back to the show. Every now and then I get a pretty funny email about so-called bias. And in this case this morning, it was about sports bias. Sports is inherently a biased thing. People cheer for one team or another. So, and Buddy said, why are you always going on about the Jays? Well, for starters, I don't. Very seldom do I ever say anything about the Toronto Blue Jays, but his number one concern, and it's funny because Dave Williams mentioned this to me earlier, is how come I didn't make a big deal out of Clayton Kershaw, lefty ace with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Last night became the 20th pitcher in Major League history to record 3,000 regular season strikeouts. Okay, great. I actually like Kershaw, even though he's been a bit of a flop in the playoffs over the years, even with the Dodgers being such a dominant team. Quite likely to be in the World Series hunt again this year. But I'll throw a number out there to you, listener and emailer, regarding strikeouts. How about this? Nolan Ryan, 5,714 strikeouts. You want to talk about strikeout numbers? So that was pretty funny. And there's another email, and I think this is a good question. You know, we talk about food insecurity and proximity to food and the seasonal farming, traditional farming, and just about the concept of hydroponics, which I think, and you've heard me say this before, I think if I had my druthers, I'd be involved in government using some of their resources in conjunction with the private sector to pepper the entire province with hydroponic greenhouses. The upfront cost is pretty significant, but the year-round growing is impressive. And I think we can probably grow more here than people realize in the first place. But the specific question there was about the canopy grow-up facility up on the White Hills. Whatever became of that? Excellent question. Canopy, remember back in the day, the big controversy there was the very lucrative land lease deal that was struck between Canopy and a numbered company. And the fact is, you don't have to put a name associated with a numbered company in this province. You know, the only person that you need to name is our representative, and that can simply be the lawyer that incorporated the company in the first place. But yeah, it's a massive facility where Canopy didn't plant a single plant. Not one. So what's being done? I think that land lease must be close to up. And if there's an opportunity for that to be converted from cannabis to growing leafy greens or whatever the case may be, certainly a conversation worth pursuing. So the email was pretty short. It said, what happened to the canopy grow up? Good question. Don't know. Then I think some confusion about the comments I made about home care support this morning. So basically, the email accused me of just wanting to waste more money on things like home care. You know, why add to the home care cost? I didn't say anything like that. The thought is that if you are approved, after a social worker does an assessment of your physical condition, your needs, and you're approved for home care, the question is about who provides that home care. People struggle all the time looking for additional hours because their concerns, their life changes. Maybe their physical condition is worsening. Maybe their mental conditioning is worsening. So there's a need for an expanded hours. What I had said about who provides the support is, if you're approved, then is there not an opportunity for, if and when you have a family member, a loved one, a spouse, whatever the case may be, to provide that home care support? Consequently, we were going to pay someone to provide it, and if additional hours can be covered by a loved one who gets some form of compensation from the provincial government, that probably sounds like a reasonable idea to pursue. Whether or not we talk about how many hours would be paid versus how many hours you're approved for, even if we just stick with the hours you're approved for, I think that's probably not a bad idea. It's certainly a conversation worth delving into a little deeper. Then I extended it on to things regarding what we understand and what we talk about is the health and mental risks, physical health and mental health risks associated with loneliness and isolation. That's got to be factored in here somehow. If the biggest price tag in the province is access to health care, then to try to do our level best to avoid any avoidable issues regarding your physical health and your mental well-being is attending to and understanding what the issues are associated with loneliness and being isolated. And again, there are two different things. You can be in a crowd of people and still feel lonely. And then you, of course, can be isolated, socially isolated, which means you don't have people around. The studies that have been done into these two areas, the research is pretty clear. They talk about heightened physical risks, heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure. It's not me saying so. There's the actual academic research and clinical research that's been crystal clear on this one. Type 2 diabetes. So they've shown a connection between loneliness and higher risk of developing type 2. The weakened immune system. So if you have a weakened immune system, you're more susceptible to different illnesses, different infections, and consequently interaction with the healthcare system. Obesity, which is an interesting one. For people who maybe are lonely, there might be the heightened risk of an unhealthy life choices like overeating. So there you go. Mental health risks, which is, I think, one of the key focus areas here, if we want to understand the impact on your well-being when you're lonely or isolated. There is a heightened risk, a significant risk, for depression and anxiety disorders, simply because you're lonely. And if we can cure or so-called two birds with a loved one being paid to provide home care support and consequently that person with an omnipresent presence in your life, then there's something to be said for that. There's also research that suggests that both isolation and loneliness can contribute to cognitive decline, increasing the risk for developing dementia, including Alzheimer's. Then in severe cases, of course, we used to never be able to say these words out loud, but suicidality and self-harm as the risk of being lonely and or isolated. Then you sleep worse and a bunch of potential unhealthy behaviors. So trying to understand all of that and how they work in conjunction and how we might be able to do better, save money, keep you in your own home longer in life, which Canadians apparently want to do. Do a cost-benefit analysis compared to being in a long-term care facility, examine the possibility for a loved one to provide home care paid for by the provincial government, and maybe, just maybe, avoid all of those mental and physical health pitfalls that we just mentioned. All right, let's check in on the Twitter before we get to the news. We're VOCM Open Line. You can follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great final hour. That means you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 1. Say good morning to the Ward 3 councillor here in the city of St. John's. That's Greg Noseworthy. Greg, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you today?
Not too bad, I suppose. How about you?
You know, it's a sunny day. You can't beat it.
It's lovely out.
Listen, Paddy, I just wanted to touch base. I know we had a caller in earlier today was touching base about the change date for the annual St. John's Regatta, of course, going ahead now July 30th because of the Canada Games. But we do also have the Monday Pond Regatta, which is coming up this weekend. It's going to be a great event. There's going to be games, punt races, entertainment, food, the whole 9 yards. So I just really wanted to let everybody know about that. That's taking place 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. there at Monday Pond, of course, on Monday Pond Road.
How many races they got on the books this year? Do you happen to know?
Yeah, I was chatting with organizers yesterday evening. Actually, we were out for some practice spins, and I think we're creeping up around the dozen mark. We've got men's and women's races, which is always great, and there's, of course, the championship race and all that good stuff. So there's going to be a good few this year. It's going to be great.
Are they still racing punts?
You got it. Yeah, I was out in one last night, giving a whirl. I'm not an experienced rower by any stretch, but you'll see me on the water Saturday. So if you want to have a laugh at a counsellor trying to make his way down Monday Pond, now's your chance.
Well, I bet you people will take you up on that, Greg. So the fascinating thing about the Monday Pond Regatta for me, not only that they race in two-person punts, but it took like a 68-year hiatus or something like that. Raced right up until 1949, then it went away. Yeah. I think a lady, see if I can remember her name, Tracy Pope, maybe? Yeah. It was one of the women that brought it back after that, said 68 years of not racing, so brilliant stuff for the community.
Absolutely, and Tracy is doing some incredible work. She's been working with a ton of local businesses, whether it's Import Tools, Akita, Waverly Inspection. I mean, we have got so much support to really bring this to life, and it's community led, it's community driven. Whether it's Ken and Tony Don or anybody else. Last night we were out getting the dock set up, and this year we were at the city level able to expand the launch area, which is great to support, and it's going to be bigger, better this year and for many years to come.
Great stuff. I had been to a Monday Pond Regatta, I think maybe the second year that after they brought it back, and it was a great laugh, I have to say. And
it's fantastic. And listen, there's going to be a dance after too, not to cut you off, Paddy, but just so everybody knows, they're at the Knights of Columbus on St. Clair, 8 o'clock. Tickets are only $15. It's another great part of the festivities.
Anything else on the city agenda you'd like to broach this morning, Greg, while we have you?
Yeah, absolutely. So just want to let everybody know we've got the Party in the Park. That's the annual party in the park, and that's going to be going ahead Wednesday, July 16th. That's there at the bungalow in Bourne Park. Free event for seniors and families, of course. Everybody's welcome. Local entertainment, refreshments, giveaways. We've got Elaine Dunphy, the Boogie Babes, Patty Burke. It's going to be great. There's no registration required, just so everybody is aware. We do have a transportation service, so if you do need that, there is advanced registration required, and it's $6 for pickup. So either if you're at the Old Muse on Monday Pond Road, you can register for that. Register online or call 576-8499. And again, another great event, and we've got a rain date for Thursday the 17th as well, and that'll be at the Shriners Club. So hopefully the weather holds up as it has been, but we've got some great events going ahead here in the month of July.
There's a lot going on in the city and surrounding area, and of course right across the province during the summer months. I'm not necessarily going to get you to react to this, but one of the long-standing festivals that a lot of people in my social world look forward to, the Newfoundland Labrador Folk Fest, going by the wayside this year after 49 years. It's a real shame. I hear some of the organisers and past participants talking about saturation, and I get that, but it is important for there to be as much to do as possible, and I really bemoan the loss of the Folk Fest. I think that's a real drag. A summer night in Bannerman Park at the Folk Fest is pretty magical stuff. So anyway, that just popped in my head as we were talking about festivals. Anything else while we got you, Greg?
No, listen, Paddy, again, we've got a really big year with Canada Games and all these festivities. Really encourage folks to get out, support local. This is the backbone of our community, and the more support we get, the more we have these types of festivities for our neighbours, for our families, and it just keeps everybody active and living their best life.
Sounds great, man. Appreciate your time this morning, Greg. Thank you.
Thank you, Paddy. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. It's Greg Noseworthy, the Ward 3 councillor in St. John's. So I just saw, corner of my eye, a tweet coming from Nav Canada. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. You know what to do. So apparently there were bomb threats affecting airports in Ottawa, Montreal, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Calgary, Vancouver. this morning. So I don't know what implications made for traveling, but if there's any sort of what they call, in government speak, a temporary ground stop, which means got to be delayed and or canceled flights and disruption for who knows how many passengers, but bomb threats in all of those airports made today. Oh boy. In addition to that, the conversation regarding NAV Canada is, of course, that's the organization that's charged with training and educating and preparing air traffic controllers. Remember, it was, I guess a few weeks ago, there was actually an Air Canada pilot in the plane over the speaker, over the public announce system, suggesting that the time delay is because of a shortage of air traffic controllers. And so, telling people they should write their member of parliament and those types of things. I'm not sure exactly how much trouble that particular pilot got in, but it was kind of funny at the same time as frustrating. But the questions being asked of NAV Canada is just about how many people are actually getting trained. We know there's a massive shortage in this country, whether it be shortage of pilots and ground maintenance crew and mechanics, but add air traffic controllers to the mix. They make huge money, so you would have to imagine there's plenty of Canadians who wouldn't mind having a job like that. And of course, the amount of time it takes to train is important because it's a pretty complicated world, being an air traffic controller. And lots of massive responsibility resting on the shoulder of air traffic controllers. NAV Canada says they're keeping up with anyone who wants to get trained is getting trained. Some of the suggestion coming from inside the industry is that air traffic controllers themselves are encouraging NAV Canada and or their bosses and employers to don't be so quick to train anymore. Why? Protecting their overtime. I mean, there's air traffic controllers out there maybe making a salary as experienced veterans of the industry, $180,000, and making another $180,000 in overtime. You can only hope that's not the case. NAV Canada's responsibility is not necessarily to the air traffic controller, it's to the industry, it's to the paying public, it's to the airlines. But some of the hiccups that you might experience today, maybe about the bomb threats that have been made in Ottawa, Montreal, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Calgary, Vancouver. So apparently all hands are safe, and the stoppage, or what they call the temporary ground stop, has been implemented at the affected airports. We'll try to get an update on that front as soon as possible. Every time we bring up air travel, get a couple of concerned listeners that they think, we are being overly harsh or critical of the airline industry. When calling a spade kind of stuff, is my responsibility as a traveler is to buy my ticket, show up at the airport on time, take off my belt and empty the coins and the lighters and stuff out of my pocket. After that, that's it. That's my responsibility. Nothing else. Not about turnover of pilots and staff, not about turnover of ground crew, not about problems with shortage of mechanics or air traffic controllers. So as a preemptive comment, you needn't come at me about we're too mean to the airlines. Look, there's about 90,000 unresolved complaints sitting at CTA. Add to it, there's a bit of change in legislation where me, as someone who's filed a complaint, regardless of whether or not I'm successful at CTA, you're not allowed, and they will not post the ins and the outs of the complaint and how the resolution was arrived at. Just simply dates and flight numbers. That's it. Which is an extreme level of protection for the airlines. For people to know whether or not they have a foot or a leg to stand on regarding however their flight was delayed or disrupted, is if you see that people are being successful, experiencing something similar to what you did, then of course you're going to file a complaint. And last comment on that front. Be wary of settling with the airline before it's resolved at CTA. They'll make you an offer pennies on the dollar. So I know it's frustrating us, whether it be luggage and or disruptions and flight delays and cancellations, but before this particular pilot gets mad at me, my responsibility is to buy the ticket, show up on time, empty my pockets. Let's see you. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. So let's go to line number one, taking over to the Conservative Party of Canada, Member of Parliament for Central Newfoundland. That's Clifford Small. Clifford, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. This is apropos of nothing, but it's too bad they changed the name of your riding to something so lame and boring as Central Newfoundland versus, what was it, Coast Bay's Notre Dame?
Yeah, it was called the Coast Bay Central Notre Dame, and we have put forward to have the name be changed back to Coast Bay Central Notre Dame, and it's a bit of a process, and the Parliament was prorogued. We had objected through a bill that typically goes through on unanimous consent to have the name remain the same, but you know what happened in the last Parliament, so that process got cancelled, but now there's another process in place whereby we're trying to change the name back to what it was, because it's a name that's very inclusive of the various geographic areas in the region, Paddy.
Yeah, and I didn't even know that was taking place, but it was one of those things that jumped off when there was, a reconfiguration of some federal ridings and some ridings to be renamed and some ridings added. I think we added 4 new federal ridings this Parliament. So anyway, there you go. What's on your mind this morning, Clifford?
Oh, I'm just calling you, Paddy, to voice my support for the groups that are opposed to the establishment of the National Marine Conservation Area on the South Coast, and in support of the economic impact that's associated with the aquaculture industry in the region, and what it means to all of this federal riding and Newfoundland and Labrador and the Canadian economy, in fact, Paddy.
So current aquaculture sites grandfathered in. The concern would be any expansion would be shelved, right?
Yes. So far, that's the way it's looking. But as we've had experience in the past with other conservation areas in the ocean, the regulations can shift on the fly. So there's a lot of mistrust, and it's deterring investment in that part of Atlantic Canada, that new conservation area. The foreign investment wants regulation that they know they can trust.
So has there been any proposed expansions, whether it be for companies operating here or new entrants into the aquaculture industry, that have withdrawn a proposal, or is it just about the uncertainty that risks any potential investment decision?
Yes, it's the uncertainty that's existing right now, and basically one of the signatories needs to pull out of the MOU in order to collapse that thing. And I think the best chance of it happening at this stage would be for the provincial government to withdraw their support for it. From what I can see, I'm very doubtful that Gilboa, and I wouldn't even basically waste my breath on him because he's so hung up on what he signed at COP15. But we're speaking about the 30 by 30 here now, Paddy.
Yeah. So, I mean, the signatories to this, I think, is the Halapu, Miapakek, I think even the town of Burgeo, if I'm not mistaken, and then both levels of government, province and the federal government. So are you saying that only one needs to back out for this to crumble?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Only one. And as well, Alibu Nation signed it as well. And I know that the federal government went to Burgeo with lavish promises of a vast influx of dollars into the economy, and promised Burgeo that they'd be the next Rocky Harbour and things like that. But it's empty promises as far as I'm concerned. And the economic impact to the fishing industry on the South Coast will be devastating. Scallop fishing, any cod fishing in the future, herring fishing, mackerel fishing. Basically, right now, the only fishing that they're saying is going to be allowed is lobster fishing. But what happens with whale protocol down the road? Who knows? I mean, the entire area possibly could be completely shut down, as we've seen in similar type conservation areas in British Columbia that I've had some experience with.
Okay, just to give the folks a little bit of context, and then I'll ask you a question. This is a pretty significant swath of water we're talking about here. Between Lipoil and McCallum, it's something in the neighborhood of, it's over 9,000 square kilometers anyway. I can't remember the exact number. There's an extension for offshore protections as well, up to 70 kilometers, once again, I think it is. And that's a pretty big extension. So just for a bit of context so people know what we're talking about. But my question for you would be, when we talk about economic impact, there's also an economic impact of things going wrong or things worsening in the environment, including in the ocean. So if you had George Ruthers, how do we do both? Because that's the trick here, is to protect the environment, because that has an economic downside, whether it be for the wild fishery and or the aquaculture industry and for seabirds and however people want to do their calculation. So how do you protect the environment at the same time allow for a reasonable approach to environmental assessments and approvals for business expansion and or newcomers?
That's a great question, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. Paddy, have you heard talk of the Open Standards Conservation Guide that's used in establishing conservation areas?
I know what it is. I don't know much about it, though, I'll admit.
So you can go right on the Open Standards Conservation Guide, right on their website. And I questioned the Minister of Environment, but she dodged all of it because now we've got Parks Canada in one department, Environment is another department, and then there's an environment that has nature in its title. So basically, she dodged those questions. But right on this the Conservation Standards website, they make this statement because objectives are never measured in these conservation areas. There's they don't have an area where they measure before and after for outcomes. So right on the Conservation Standards website, here's a quote: "The stakes are high. However, we don't have a fully functional system to assess the effectiveness of our actions. We cannot know or demonstrate that we are achieving desired results." Now, this is the guide that groups like CPAWS, because actually I found out about the Open Standards Conservation Guide by going through what CPAWS had published on the Eastern Avalon protected area that they're proposing. So if these groups and the people that are funded by basically mostly American philanthropists and trusts, if they're going to establish these areas and their guidelines are going to be coming from a group that makes a statement that outcomes can't be measured, what's this all about? It's a numbers game with the United Nations, of course. So these numbers games are catching people who depend on industries for a livelihood. And I don't think we should be playing a numbers game with the United Nations, funded by Americans, funded by the same groups who shut down our seal hunt and brought in such a lack of biodiversity into many parts of our ecosystem by their actions. So I completely don't trust the Marine Protected Area process, Paddy.
I'm going to look at the open standards thing. I mean, all I know about it is, talk about collaboration and a 5-step approach to whatever the case may be. So I'll have a little closer look at it because I've heard of it. I know what it is, but I didn't know the ins and outs or the caveats about here's what we're trying to do, but we can't prove whether or not it's effective. That's a mouthful.
Exactly, and the complete 30 by 30 mandate that Minister Guilbeault signed on to at COP15 in Montreal. It's all in line with the conservation standards that can't be quantified. And then we have CPAWS and the Ecology Action Center, Oceans North, Oceania, and now, of course, the Atlantic Salmon Federation has weighed in heavily, and a group that prides itself in being operational for over 75 years to protect wild Atlantic salmon. I'm not sure how successful they've been, given the decline in wild Atlantic salmon. And they've been fighting their cause for over 75 years.
We haven't had a commercial.
Now they're coming in to try to destroy the salmon farming industry in the South Coast, destroy the livelihoods of people that reside in an area that I represent in House Commons. It's absolutely disgusting that they would come in there and do that. And I know the salmon farming industry hasn't been perfect, but if we look at the environmental record of the mining industry, the agricultural industry, which feeds us all, of which salmon farming is also a part of, the fishing industry, the oil and gas industry, you name it. There's not an industry on Earth that didn't start out being not their best selves, but that have all improved given the opportunity to do it. And salmon farming is the same thing. Their environmental standards are growing by leaps and bounds, so I think they should be given a chance. And if we look at Norway right now, that produces 18 times more salmon than Canada, and their goal by 2050 is to grow that by fivefold, which will be a number that's 100 times larger than Canada's current salmon production. And I think Norway's environmental standards are indeed world class.
But there's also something to be said for some jurisdictions that are walking away or moving away from open pen fish farming, and this place being, quote unquote, a little bit easier to get approval, a bit easier to do business. That does raise a red flag, regardless of people are in support of the industry or not. And they owe it to themselves, as well as the rest of us, to do everything humanly possible to improve conditions, whether it be for the salmon and or the environment. Like, imagine that big die-off with Maui there a few years ago. They blamed it on the lack of oxygen, because the fish all congregated so deep in the net that consequently that led to the die-off. Then they talked about making the nets deeper, adding aeration systems to it, but it took a while for the industry to adopt those types of things. So in some form, they might be partly their own worst enemy in some certain circumstances. Are there exaggerations made by different organizations about the downside? I would suggest that's probably true. But, you know, if they want to be here to stay, there's still that concept of social license that has to be adhered to, because that's an important one. Clifford, very final thoughts to go to you before I have to go.
So, your point well taken on what's been happening in BC. But I just read an article. There's a study out on the Broughton Archipelago where they removed all the salmon farms a few years ago. They took the licenses away, and those net pens are out of the water. Sea lice levels in that area right now are higher than they were when the net pens were in the water. So sea lice are natural. They're a part of our environment, and there's things that are happening now in BC with semi-enclosed pens that are working out very, very well with basically zero sea lice. So these technologies are improving. There's ongoing work there, and it'll get to where it needs to go eventually. One final thing, I had someone call up our office here in Grand Falls, Windsor, and said that they couldn't get a booking on the ferry for the entire summer. So it's a bit disappointing that people from our province can't actually get a booking on the ferry to travel to the mainland all summer. And in addition, there's the promise that was made. We're still waiting on hearing when the ferry rates are going to be cut in half. But I think more of a concern than the rates is a lack of access for passage, and I think there needs to be some action on that. And I did speak to some folks, and I said, well, what about if we look to South America, where it's winter and their tour season is over? Could we charter a vessel, an extra vessel to come here in the summertime that in the winter in the fall could leave and go back to where they're from, so that we could get greater access and more tourists on the island, and more of our islanders able to access the mainland, Paddy.
I'd be interested in seeing the math on that one, but fair enough. I keep talking about Marine Atlantic and the Prime Minister's pledge and the whole Canada Strong Pass that's out there, which includes via rail and parks and museums and stuff. There's no good reason why Marine Atlantic should not be part of that. I've got to get to the news, but I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Clifford Small is the CPC member for Central Newfoundland, and here's just a great example. I said there was preemptively, I was absolutely going to be getting guaranteed feedback on the NAV Canada comments I made about bomb threats. And just this is the stuff I put up with. So today, airlines will be held responsible for a bomb threat. What? I mean, of course, I didn't say that. You know, again, it's just remarkable. Tell me to educate myself, get my head out of the sand. What are you talking about? Nobody blamed the airlines for bomb threats. I mean, it's the idiocy that is just unbelievable sometimes. Let's see here. Let's take a break for the news. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to, where am I going? Line number 5, taking more to the PC member for Conception Bay South. He's the Shadow Minister for Health and Community Services. That's Barry Pettin. Good morning, Barry. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you doing?
I'm not bad, I suppose. How about you?
I'm good, thanks. Paddy, I'm calling in today. I guess the ongoing AG report on travel nurses was a release I put out this morning. And I guess what precipitated the release outside the overall this shock, I suppose, the scandal of this issue is yesterday, Mr. Parfrey, Dr. Parfrey, I guess, who headed the NLHS, basically was in the media disputing, I guess, some of the AG's findings and some of the numbers, and how it was reported, and basically, in defence of what I consider to be indefensible. And it brought me to a question. Was last week we had the Minister of Health, Miss Howell, saying it was disgusting. She was, all the right words. So really. And then Mr. Parfrey's coming out yesterday, basically saying he basically disagrees with some of her findings. I mean, first of all, Miss Hanrahan is the officer of the House. Usually the AG's reports, the governments don't like them. Most AG reports, if they're skating, they don't do government. Anyone on receiving end is not happy about it, but it is what it is. And she is an officer of the House, and she's held in high regard, and the reports should stand alone. And they're done as thorough, unbiased report, so I think that it is what it is. But I guess the question comes back to me. It's nearly $250 million at stake here. It's a huge amount of money. We've heard all the stories about the electric, vehicles and the air fryers and the milk frauders and the rentals and all the stuff. So, my question comes back to government. If Minister Al was discussed last week, does she agree that does she dispute some of the findings of the AG? Because when you got someone that's head of the health authority, which directly is under government, whoever that role is, they're appointed by government. If they're disputing the numbers from the AG, is Miss Howell, does she agree with that? Because, Paddy, we got a situation on our hands here that needs more attention. Government needs to deal with this. This is not going away. We hear a lot of people talking about it on the street. I hear people talking about it. I've been knocking doors and I'm hearing people talking about it. It's a big issue. And, it's fine to say you discussed it, but government knew about this a year ago. This was not new news. This was debated in the House Assembly. All these questions were asked by myself, by our leader. This was a hot issue in the House for quite some time. Several ministers. So much so, the current Premier looked at me when I mentioned about the exorbitant rental fees being charged in central Newfoundland, and he looked straight across and he said he's seen no conflict of interest, and just shut it down, dismissed it. We were dismissed on almost all accounts. Now the AG basically come back and reported really what we already reported last year and debated in the House. Not really new, actually worse than what we thought. But now you get this situation where, Mr. Parfrey is disputing our numbers. You got the minister, they're on, I don't even know what page they're on. And I think the public deserves to know more. It's a lot of money. And I'm not sure, I know our leader called for a judicial review. I think that's what's required here to get to the bottom of it, because there's a lot of moving parts on this one, Paddy. Yeah. And I think that the public and the government, there needs to be more clarity given to it, because I think this is a much bigger issue than most people realise.
Well, I've talked about it every single day, including having the Auditor General on the programme the day of the release or the day after. So, just from what I heard from Dr. Parfrey, and I'll put this to you to get your reaction, is I don't think there was any defence of what some of the scandalous or potentially scandalous stuff and the possibility for fraud. I think what I heard is, the time frame captured by the AG, some of the invoices that were submitted in 23 but not paid till 24 maybe made some difference in change, and just quoting a number, 42% reduction in reliance on travel nurses. I don't think I heard Parfrey say anything about, there's nothing to see here and there's no possibility of fraud. That's all I heard from him. So is it not important to get the current, updated, accurate numbers out there in addition to understanding exactly what the AG and her team reported?
Yeah, no, that's fair, and he never said that, but he leaves you the illusion. When you read it, and I read it, other people have read it too, you're left with, I think the words was he refutes or defends or whatever, right? The point of the matter is, if we don't realise we got a problem, how are we ever going to fix it? I think generally the public would rather, let's dig down and solve this issue. Well, it's a bit of semantics going on about when an invoice was submitted and when it was paid. I get that, but the AGs go in. I think in fairness, the AG would have reported that in our findings. They're not going to name one person, Paddy. This is a full-on, as you know, deep dive. These reviews take a lot of work, a lot of manpower or human resources go into this sort of thing. And I trust what's in the report is fine. I think another part of the report, she states that the numbers weren't an actual drop in travel nurses. It was that the NLHS couldn't tell them how many they needed, so it was a dip, kind of happened organically. But that wasn't, but NLHS is saying that there was a drop in their required travel nurses, but the AG disputes that. And that's fair point. But we need to get to the bottom of that. That's why this stuff needs to be fleshed out more than the head of the health authority basically saying, questioning some of the word in the AG's report and vice versa. I think that the AG report should stand alone. I think, I do believe some kind of review or inquiry or something needs to go into it. It's a lot of money, and I think that the Minister Al needs to probably step up and also offer clarity what our viewpoints are.
I got no problem with that. And it's not just a one standalone conversation regarding healthcare or travel agency nurses. I think the next phase of these investigations or audits into whether it be Teladoc or Compass or whoever, we're going to find out a lot more. And plus, it's not that long ago we had the invoice splitting issue regarding the Department of Education, or I guess at the time at the school district itself. So protocols and understanding what conflict of interest means, and to have every employee made well aware and to sign on to and have well understood consequences for breaching a conflict of interest, which, renting out your own personal property at exorbitant fees, well above premium fees. How do people not understand that to be a conflict of interest? It's just remarkable to me. Whether it's oblivious, incompetent, or you give it a word, there's something patently wrong here. So, yeah, more needs to be done. No argument coming from me.
Yeah, Paddy, on that point, and there's one that I bring up to my own people, and it's one that sticks with me, is my debate with the former Minister, of course, Premier Hogan. I mean, it's clearly written and answered. He looked straight at me, and he said he don't see no conflict of interest with these rentals. I mean, my opinion at the time, and it still never changed, why not just say, listen, I'm going to look into this. Something don't sound right here. I'm going to try to get to the bottom of this. I would respect that, and I think general public would. Why take cover? Why provide cover for what you shouldn't be providing cover for? Like I keep saying, how can you defend the indefensible? In my opinion, there was enough information out there then. That's what should have happened. And we probably would have got more, answers or more, this brought more to light before now. Had they done just that? Like I said just earlier there, if you don't realize you got a problem, how are you ever going to fix it? And this starts right to the top, Paddy, right from the Premier to the Ministers on down, and including Mr. Parfrey. And I think this is a serious issue. I think that and people out there, I tell you, there's a lot of people, I'm sure you're hearing it every day, so you talk about it every day. It's a big issue, and it's one that demands much more attention, I think. And I think the Premier is probably missing in action more than anyone, because he has not spoken publicly on this. And I think that as head of government, any Premier should speak on an issue like this. It's nearly $250 million, and Premier Hogan should be out speaking on it one way or the other.
Appreciate the time, Barry. Thank you.
Okay, Paddy. Thanks a lot.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Barry Patton, PC member, CBS. Let's take a final break in the morning. Don't go away. Welcome back. Quickly before we get to the callers. So keep your eyes peeled in and around Marine Lab. A lost Irish setter comes to the name of Ginger. 2 years old, very good dog, not aggressive. The phone number is on the collar. So keep your eyes open for Ginger, the Irish setter around Marine Lab. Let's go to line number 3. Barry, you're on the air.
Hey, Paddy.
Good morning, Barry.
My man, I tell you, you need a honorary degree in psychology and social work awarded to you, because some of the stuff, I tell you, now I'm phoning about home care, as you probably already know.
Yep.
You did a summary that I've been saying in emails for years now, and everything is being ignored. So why is it someone from the outside looking in can see what's going on in home care, not only for persons with disabilities, but the seniors as well, and the others that are either left dead the circle, who can't advocate on their behalf, or are afraid to because they might lose what they have. Is an ongoing problem. And I've been fighting them now this is my 4th year in trying to get extra funding for persons with disabilities, and no results. So, I'm beating my head against the wall, at least for the last year. Then they wonder why, I get a bit aggressive in my emails and what I say. Well, I'm only speaking the truth, and still don't get anywhere. The social worker is supposed to advocate on behalf of their clients, but instead is reversed. They come in and dictate to their clients of what they're entitled to, and if they need any more hours than that, well, it's too bad. And if getting funded through an agency, the agency just collects the money and puts in for what kind of hours, I don't know. So I think the AG should be looking into what the agencies are charging and putting in for on behalf of clients, because it's not petty little money. This is big money that's going out to agencies that are being charged to Eastern Health or NLHS or whatever they're called now, to the point where the hours might be ballooned for what they're putting in for what their clients are receiving, or flex hours or whatever. Like, I don't know, they should check in on it. But I mean, my main concern is trying to get my standalone home support, because not only for my physical needs, it's the mental part of it as well. And you mentioned that in your 3 or 4 minute comment that you made about the home care system. I live in an apartment building here where the seniors are here, and there's other people with disabilities that are just getting by. No, they're not getting by. They get their 3 hours a day or whatever, and for the other 21 hours, they're left on their own. They don't have any family checking on them. And if they don't have a friend in the building to bring them a bite to eat, or drop by in case of emergency if they fall on the floor or whatever, then they're in jeopardy. And like the people on the inside, the workers, social workers or psychologists or whatever, don't look at that part, and neither do the managers or directors, and right on up and down. I mean, you're on the inside, you're on the outside looking in. I'm on the inside, dependent on this system that I can't even get any answers or feedback. As a matter of fact, Minister Payton, who was just on, he brought my case up in the House of Assembly the last day that he sat, and he brought up my name, and he said, well, most of the MPs, MHAs here are aware of Barry Pye's condition and situation, and in the opposition, no, well, we can't speak on that, and all this kind of stuff. Siobhan Cody, who's my MHA for the constituency here, she just hung her head, and I was in the gallery, right, and she couldn't even look up, and no more she should, because shameful. The MHAs, the social workers are telling me the MHAs are the ones with all the say in changing their policies. We're just enforcing what's brought down to us. And the MHAs are saying, no, it's not our policies, it's the Newfoundland Labrador Health Services policies that can't be changed. So no flexibility, no consideration on physical health needs or the mental part of it. It's shameful.
I try to paint a broader picture than just talk about hours, because that's where I think the conversation is missing. If we just say that someone got an assessment and they need to be reassessed, or how many hours they get, it's a bigger issue than that. And I'm not so sure who understands that, but it seems pretty clear to me.
Well, that's what I mean. It seems pretty clear to the social workers and psychologists that I see outside the health services who, get the picture right off the bat. I just got to explain in 5 minutes talking to them, and they're saying, wow, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. Well, there you go. So I can go on for 2.5 hours for an assessment, and the social worker that's assigned to me goes back, and that's it. I hear of nobody from anyone, and it's sad.
It is.
Sad. And people won't phone in or speak up because they're afraid to lose what they have.
And I guess that's why we'll just have to keep talking about it like we do on the show. And even if people would like to tell their stories and remain anonymous, they can do that if they have any fear of reprisal. So we can accommodate as best we can. Barry, you've had the last word this morning. I appreciate your time.
And I encourage people to do so. Seniors or people taking care of their moms or dads and aging in place, that kind of stuff, that to get it out in the open line is one spot to go to, and let's get together and do this.
I appreciate this, Barry. Thank you.
Right on. Okay, Paddy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Right on.
All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands, and we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.